Hello and welcome to Azariah's Studio. My name is Sarah. I am the artist and designer behind Azariah's Studio. I want to show you how to measure your swatches correctly, which starts with making your swatch correctly, and then be able to use the information from the swatch so that you can make the changes and modifications to the pattern that are needed. I used this yarn. They're just different colors. Knit Picks, We Crochet. It's because I have some of it in stash that's not going to anything, so this was a good project for it. It is 100% wool. They have been blocked. I did not block them aggressively. I just got them wet, let them soak for like an hour in some water, and then just laid them out flat. There was no pins involved or anything. They are just blocked. In order to measure a swatch correctly, you do need to block it as the finished piece is going to be blocked. If it were a lace swatch, it needs to be pinned and pulled out aggressively as the finished piece will be, or your numbers are going to be incorrect and ultimately your finished piece will not be the correct size. So on the yarn label here, it gives a suggested needle size and a suggested hook size. I used size 9 needles and I used a size I hook. And then it gives you a suggested stitches per inch for each, for knit and for crochet. This is the information that you're going to use to begin your swatch, to figure out how much you either need to chain or to cast on. A good swatch with a section in the middle to measure is going to be around 6 inches. Not everybody agrees on this part of the swatch with knitting, that the garter stitch borders get in the way. I don't think they get in the way because ultimately you're going to be measuring in here anyway. Yeah, you can see where it's pulled down this side a little bit, but if it's been blocked well, those garter stitch borders aren't going to make a difference. But including the garter stitch borders, this swatch, now this is blocked, but barely, right? Just enough to lay flat, is 7 inches wide. So I cast on 7 inches worth of stitches. And this one is right about the same. Got the little extra chain bumps on the edge, right at 7 inches. So what you're going to do is you're going to take the stitches per inch. So I chose the 9, so I went with the smaller number. A larger hook or larger needles is going to make less stitches per inch. A smaller needle or a smaller hook will make more stitches per inch. And then I multiplied 4.5 times 7, and over here I went with probably the 14, though and that's to 4 inches. You got to read everything. This one's to 1 inch, this one's to 4 inches. 4 inches is what you're going to find standard in most patterns, be they knit or crochet. Just because 4 inches is what, it gives you enough information. An inch doesn't generally give you enough information. Now I have this ruler because it's clear, translucent. You can see through it. You can see through it to count your stitches. I picked it up at the county fair recently. I also have this. It is from Acreworks. I believe it's a 3D printed piece. I'm not sure. I like it because it has the 4 inches in both directions, both for stitches and rows, and it's got teeth on it. So it hangs on and you can get it in place. And you can see, how cool is that? That row of stitches go right up there. The column of stitches. And then we got a row of stitches straight across. There we go. It's slightly crooked. So I love this thing. This thing is awesome. And it can work on the crochet pieces as well. All right. So you have your number of stitches that you need to cast on. Add 3 on each side if you desire. I also start with 4 rows of knit, but technically it becomes a 5th so that I can correctly start my stocking knit. And I ended with 4 rows of knit. On the crocheted one, it's double crochets, because double crochets are what we use most often. When you got your width, then you got to work until the piece is square. Okay, so these guys are square or nearly there. I'm trying to get the middle of this knitting part square. You can see it pretty much is. Yeah. With the border, it's hard to tell. And then this guy, square. Okay. The reason you want something that's so much bigger than 4 inches is because, again, you want to get away from the edges. You want to be here in the middle. You want to measure in the middle. When you lay it down to measure it, you want it to be flat. Don't do this on your leg. Don't do this on the arm of the chair or the couch. Find a table that's flat. I'm going to use this guy. All right. If you don't have one of these, it's fine. You can use a ruler. Rulers are better because they stay put better. Tape measures, they have drape and they flow over things and they can lie to you a little bit. Okay. In knitting, you want to count half stitches. I see a half stitch over here, so we're going to remember that. And this guy here, he's pretty much whole. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 18 and a half stitches to 4 inches. I'm going to write that down somewhere. Okay, and now we're going to count our rows. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 24, 24 and a half rows per 4 inches. Okay. Now, why do we care? Well, multiple reasons. 1, how close is this to the gauge of the pattern? Okay. If it's close, like we're talking close, because differences will add up. If it's a hat, the differences aren't going to add up as badly and you will probably be okay. If it's a sweater, the difference in gauge is going to add up quicker because you have more stitches to deal with and your sweater could come out too big or too small. I'm not going to get into all of that math here. This is about how to measure your swatch correctly. And it goes back to being able to measure a swatch correctly means making a correct swatch. Means making your swatch correctly, starting by making a big swatch, like something that's like 6 by 6 or more. This one's like 7 by 6 and change. Make sure the area you're measuring though is at least 5 by 5. And you saw I have quite a bit hanging over, especially on the sides here. And we're usually more concerned with stitch gauge than we are row gauge. But if I have this little thing here, unblocked by the way, and I'm trying to measure it, this guy's not going to work because the teeth don't really have anything to hang on to. So then I'm going to resort to my ruler, which is going to teeter, which is not a huge deal, but I'm just not going to be able to be as accurate and get as much information as I want. Like if we go from the 2 to the 4, that's 2 inches, and we count these guys, we have a half stitch here in crochet. Sometimes, but if I were measuring that over 4 inches, I wouldn't have that half stitch anymore. That would now be a whole stitch, and the numbers would be more accurate. You want a bigger piece, like this one. I'll go ahead and use the ruler on this guy. When I use a ruler, I don't start from one edge to the other. I usually start with like 1. So know that this is not 8 inches, this is 7 inches. But remember, I'm not measuring from edge to edge. I'm gonna come into the middle here and go from 2. If we do 4 inches, 1, 2, 3, 4. Get it right there at the beginning of the stitch. Now this is where I can make a decision about how I want to count. I counted to 4 to the 6, and it's not at the end of a stitch, but the 7 is pretty much at the end of a stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and count the number of stitches between the 2 and the 7. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Okay, this one has 17 stitches per 5 inches. Okay, not 4, 5. You always write down your actual measurement. All right, same thing with rows. Well, this is rows going this way. Start at the 1. Ooh, that 5's there. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4. Perfect. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, so 8 rows is 4 inches. Again, you're going to use these numbers to see how close you're getting to the gauge of the pattern. For example, if your pattern is calling for 19 stitches per 4 inches and 24 rows per 4 inches, you're going to be pretty good here. Even in a sweater, okay, you got to do the math for a sweater. So 4 inches, 19 stitches, 19 divided by 4, almost 5. Almost 5 stitches per inch is what that comes down to. So the fact that you are missing half of a stitch in 4 inches, that means over the course of 48 inches, you're going to be missing 6 stitches. So that's an inch. If you're that concerned about it, change your needle size and try again. If you find that your swatch is measuring with not enough stitches per inch, you need to go down in hook or needle size. If you find that your swatch has too many stitches per inch, you need to go up in hook or needle size. You're going to need to go down in needle size. Okay, these are choices that you're going to learn to make, but having a good swatch and good measurements from your swatch is how you're going to be able to make these choices. Again, this is about how to measure your swatch correctly. You want to have a good swatch to measure. Nice, large swatch. Thank you for watching. If you liked what you saw, be sure to like and subscribe. If you have more questions, you can always email me, Sarah@azariasfiberarts.com, or drop a comment below. Happy making!